To cross no man's land on foot during the First World War was essentially a death sentence. The landscape was a shredded expanse of flooded shell craters and tangled barbed wire, making any traditional infantry advance almost impossible. The primary obstacle was entrenched heavy machine guns. A single well-positioned crew, with a deep ammunition supply, could comfortably lock down an entire sector, hitting advancing soldiers the moment they stepped out of their own trenches. By the final year of the war, British tanks could punch through these fortified lines, but the soldiers following behind were still moving on foot. If the infantry couldn't reach the breakthrough point quickly enough to secure it, the tanks were left isolated, and any gains were easily lost. High Command initially tried a shortcut by cramming extra soldiers inside standard Mark V combat tanks. The results were disastrous. The intense heat and choking exhaust fumes meant the crammed soldiers would regularly pass out before reaching the enemy line. The failed experiments with the Mark V made it clear that standard tanks couldn't pull double duty. Future assaults would require a specialized vehicle designed to ferry a large group of men alive across the battlefield, an armored bus. In the fall of 1917, work began on the Mark IX. Nicknamed the Pig for its low, snout-like front end, this machine was built to solve the infantry transport crisis, serving as the first armored personnel carrier in history. Measuring 32 feet, the Mark IX was longer than the Mark V, yet lighter at 27 tons. To drop weight, engineers removed the side weapon sponsons and thinned the armor to 10 millimeters, deflecting small arms fire but vulnerable to artillery. This lighter profile didn't make the Pig fast. Across the cratered mud of no man's land, top speed dropped to roughly 1 mile per hour. However, its elongated track base allowed it to roll over gaps and trenches up to 12.5 feet wide without getting stuck. The exterior of the Mark IX was engineered for obstacle clearance and bullet deflection. It was a metal capsule designed to protect its occupants from small arms fire while crawling over the worst terrain of the Western Front. Moving to the inside, the engineers faced a tight deadline. The vehicle was needed for a planned 1919 offensive, which left no time to design a chassis from scratch. Instead, they took the existing Mark V layout and gutted the internal systems to accommodate a human payload. To hollow out the center, the mechanical system was split apart. The engine was pushed to the front, while the gearbox moved to the absolute rear. This cleared the open space in the center of the vehicle, providing room for the infantry. Operating the Mark IX required a crew of 4, a commander, a driver, and 2 machine gunners. There were no bulkheads or interior walls to separate their workstations from the infantry piling in right behind them. This internal layout was a brute force spatial compromise. It prioritized maximum human cargo volume over crew separation or basic comfort. For the infantry, riding inside the Pig was grueling. 30 fully equipped soldiers were crammed shoulder to shoulder into the center. There were no benches or seats, meaning the entire platoon was forced to stand for the duration of the assault. The vehicle had no suspension. As the tracks crawled over the blasted terrain, the force of hitting every ditch, bump, and crater was transmitted directly up through the floorboards and into the legs of the standing men. Adding to the physical strain was a mechanical hazard right at their feet. Because the engine was in the front and the gearbox was in the rear, an exposed propeller shaft ran along the floor. The soldiers had to dodge this spinning rod while being jostled by the movement of the tank. The air quality inside was equally hostile. Heat radiated off the engine, and the cabin quickly filled with fumes. 2 tiny exhaust fans installed on the roof were the only defense against the buildup of carbon monoxide. The interior of the Mark IX was a hostile environment, demanding that the soldiers endure physical exhaustion and poor air quality before they ever reached the combat zone. The British military continued to test this design, eventually creating an experimental amphibious variant called the Duck. They sealed off the loading doors to prevent leaks and attached wooden pontoons to the exterior to help it float. While the machine did float, testing revealed a critical design flaw. The vehicle sat so low in the water that if the crew opened the side access doors to deploy the troops, the water would immediately pour in and sink the entire machine. These amphibious tests took place in November of 1918 just as Germany signed the armistice, bringing the First World War to a close. Because of this timing, the Pig's history is one of missed opportunity. The military had ordered 200 of these vehicles for a massive 1919 offensive, but with the war over, only 36 were ever built. The Mark IX never saw a single day of actual combat. While the Pig remained a tactical footnote, it functioned as a proof of concept for mechanized infantry. Its design demonstrated the engineering possibility of shielding soldiers from small arms fire, establishing the template for the armored personnel carriers that would follow decades later.